Hello, and I welcome you all to Outright Justification, Transparency, and Intelligibility. All of these elements were missing when Justin Trudeau invoked emergency powers to quell the Freedom Convoy protests and blockades. This is the report from February 2022 when Justin Trudeau invoked Emergency Act for the first time in the country's history to quell protests. And this is the person, Justice Richard Mosley, who has now destroyed Justin Trudeau, his act of murdering democracy, and he has now delivered a landmark judgment, which is a defining moment in the country's democratic journey. So now we will look at his judgment, and first of all, let's start with the Freedom Convoy protest. What was it? The Freedom Convoy was a group of truck drivers and they were joined by thousands of individuals who supported freedom, who were against the social restrictions and vaccine mandates. And they were of the view that these restrictions were impacting their lives, their businesses, and so these restrictions should be lifted. And later on, the movement grew into a political movement. And initially, it was against COVID 19, as I said, but later on, they were also raising their voice against the government's health policies and also the government's approach to dissent. So, overall, it became a political movement. So, with time, the movement became so big that Trudeau had to resort to invoking the Emergency Act. And now let's focus on those sweeping measures which were taken under the Emergency Act. First of all, this led to the forceful arrests of protesters. Thousands of protesters were detained just for protesting, just for exercising their basic right. And not just that, it also led to seizing of their financial assets, including freezing of bank accounts. And not just of those protesters, but also of those big donors. All bank accounts belonging to the donors were also seized, were closed down, and also their access to financial services like debit credit cards, loans, and insurance schemes was also cut off. These were the sweeping draconian measures which were taken by the government to quell, to kill that protest. And now I also want to highlight this report where several convoy organizers they went to court and they said that even their spouses were cut off from their money who could not make vehicle payments or purchase groceries and medication because of their accounts were frozen by the government. So even those individuals who had not protested against the government were also made to feel the heat. And the judge pulled no punches. I would like to quote him. He basically destroyed Trudeau. He said, I conclude that there was no national emergency justifying the invocation. And the decision to do so was therefore unreasonable and ultra vires. And he also ruled that the act of freezing bank accounts, which is really unprecedented, which can only happen in countries like China or maybe North Korea or maybe Iran. This act was likewise unwarranted. The judge ruled. Now, there was also some uh, allegations against these truckers. I want to highlight some major allegations which were made against the truckers, against the protesters. Even the pro government people were saying, look at these people, they are far right activists and they are setting up border blockades and they are occupying residential area in downtown Ottawa. And some allegations were made that they are harassing and threatening locals there. Now, the judge said that even though these allegations are serious and objectionable, but it did not amount to serious violence or threats of violence. So, again, the invocation of Emergency Act was unreasonable, the judge said. Before we move forward, I also want to highlight these allegations, some serious allegations against the government against the government's police, which is RCMP, it might have deliberately tried to sabotage the movement, the protests, to malign the convoy. Now, these are some allegations which are on your screen. You can have a look at them. These are really serious. Moving on, what next for the government? It has now said it will appeal the ruling, and it means that the matter will now go into the Supreme Court of the country, which will decide whether the invocation was legal or not. But before I end this video, I also want to shed light on this guy, Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the NDP. Now, this guy has been banned from India because of his support to radical extremists and terrorists. And this guy is also murdering democracy in his own home. And when Trudeau declared emergency last year, he said he will also support the declaration. Although he said the invocation was a proof of a failure of leadership, but again he went on to support the declaration. And it was only because of his support that Trudeau managed to push that bill, push that measure through the parliament, because as per the Emergencies Act, you need to have the approval of the parliament within 7 days from the invocation. So it was only because of Jagmeet Singh's support that Trudeau could get away with it. Again, before I conclude, I want to salute Justice Richard Mosley. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a nice day.